in conjunction with our joint the joint committee of city and the city council and the school committee. And we have present member of the committee, Terry Murphy and Juan Burgos. We also have others here tonight. I think I'm not gonna need the agenda anymore, so I'm gonna, if anybody else needs it, I like to have the full screen here, please. And we have Irene Sims from part of the joint committee of the school committee. Well, I'm sorry, Irene, who else is part of the joint committee on that side? Can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry. Niles Crocheting and Jay Willihan, he'll be late.
Okay. Okay, and we have others here. We have our mayor, Alex Morse. We have city council, Joe McGivern. We have Patricia Duffy, welcome. Michael Moyardi, welcome. John Villas, Libby Hernandez, city councilor, Niles Corshing, and what else? Margaret will be presenting tonight, correct? We have Whitney Anderson, school department. We have just doing some recognition. So those that I know that are part of the council or the city, I know we have presenters here tonight, and I would like them to present themselves as we go on at the moment of presentations. I also would like to recognize, I'm sorry, John Villas, that I still, I can see him on the screen. Welcome and thank you for being on the page. Anyone else? Everyone else will be presenting tonight. So I would like to entertain a motion to move item 3 out of order and take it up as the first item. Is that's okay with the body? Like, anybody would like to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to take item 3.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so there's an item tonight where we're gonna have presentations. I believe that the presentation is ready to be rolled out by Anthony. Is that Anthony Soto who's gonna be presenting first?
Yes, I'm here, and I'm here with Erin Linville. She'll be helping out today with the presentation as well.
Okay. I just want to open my picture. Very sorry. I'm trying to open my page here. I'm sorry to kind of call the order on do you have, Irene, can you call the order that we're going to be doing on 3A, please?
I'm pulling it up now myself. Jeffrey, can you put the agenda on? Oh, sorry.
I just can read it to the public, please.
And Jeff, can you enable screen sharing? I don't have the rights to do that.
Yes, I can. So who needs screen sharing?
Erin Linville.
Okay. Does Anthony need it as well or just Erin?
Oh, I'm better at it than him. I'll take it.
Okay.
I'm just teasing.
Okay. So
we're going to pull in order 3A, which is the reconvening, the review process and discussion of the middle school project.
Can you read the whole thing though for the public?
The joint committee of city council and the school committee will meet and invite the mayor, the school department / receiver, treasurer, members of the city finance team, and members of the community to review the feasibility study and MSBA financing and collect the necessary data requested by the MSBA in order to better assess the project proposal.
Okay. Let's get on with the show. Okay, we don't need it anymore. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
So
Gladys, do you mind if I introduce Erin and Anthony Soto?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I just want to thank everyone for coming and thank Irene and Gladys for calling tonight's meeting. And, the purpose of tonight is to provide, I think, a much needed update on the status of the middle school project that was defeated at the ballot box in November of 2019. I think a lot of us recognize the need for state-of-the-art middle school facilities in Holyoke. That was a recurring theme throughout Dr. Reich's tenure, his 5 years here in Holyoke. And at the beginning of Dr. V's tenure, parents and community members, staff and faculty of the public schools was still very interested in advancing this project. As you know, a team of school department folks and city folks, school committee members, city councilors went out to Boston soon after the vote in November of 2019 to meet directly with Jack McCarthy and folks with the MSBA to talk about next steps, and they made it very clear that they were still interested in helping Holyoke any way they could. But it was really on the city to chart forward the next steps and figure out whether or not we could financially afford to move forward, to do one school, to do two schools, obviously without a debt exclusion override. Apologize if there's any feedback. My dog, of course, waits to. And so that's sort of where we were. And then over the last several months, there's been a team of city, school department, as well as State Rep Pat Duffy and State Senator John Velis have joined in on those meetings on a regular basis, which we're grateful for. Councilor LISI, Councilor McGee, Councilor Murphy, as well as Mike Moriarty, along with a few members of the school department, Aaron, of course, Anthony Soto, and other folks on the team have been meeting every other Thursday to move this along. And we're at a sort of critical point where we've gotten updates on financing and ability. And tonight really is to bring everyone up to speed as to what has happened since November 2019 and a pathway forward. And really want to thank Anthony Soto and Aaron in the school department for putting together a very solid presentation as to where we are, where we need to go from here, and what we need to do to put the best foot forward to show strength that we support and want to access funds to build at least one new middle school. And so from the onset, I just wanted to introduce Aaron and Anthony Soto. Thank you all for being here. It's a great team. It's great to see Margaret here, who worked very hard alongside the city a couple of years ago. It's great that we have members of our state delegation, a number of city councilors and school committee members. And so a really solid team to start this conversation and hopefully advance it in the weeks and months to come. And so with that, I'll hand it over to Aaron and Anthony Soto for a presentation, and I'll likely chime in when necessary.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Morse. And happy St. Patrick's Day to everybody. I'm not sure whose idea this was, but I'm sure some of you are a little upset that on St. Patrick's Day we scheduled a meeting at 6:30, but this is a very important topic that we wanted to make sure we updated the committee on. We've had a chance to meet with the school committee and provide them with an update. And I think everybody on this call and on this Zoom knows how important this is for Holyoke Public Schools. So I hope to give a brief update as to where we've been, where we're at right now, and what we need to do to move forward with this MSBA project. So Aaron, can you move to the timeline, slide number 5, please?
Yep, I'm trying. Hold on.
So as everyone knows, in November, we had a vote that failed in terms of how the buildings were going to be funded. We took that as a signal that not that Holyoke didn't want middle schools, but there was just disagreement on how we funded the middle schools. And since that failed vote, we met over the summer, and we decided, and after the MSBA had reached out to us and encouraged us to apply, we decided to apply for a new middle school, one new middle school. And given the pandemic and everything that had happened, there was definitely some delays, but we had a meeting with the MSBA in the fall of 2020, and they indicated that they would support this project, but they wanted to see some alignment in city government and, you know, some collaboration going on, and make sure that this is something that Holyoke really wanted. And they also wanted to see a clear financial plan. So we began to meet in January of 2021, as Morse mentioned, with a group of stakeholders. And gladly, the mayor was able to work with Cinder and in his office, or not in his office, but the financial advisor of the city. And they were able to provide an update to the MSBA, which most of you have received, that that shows that the city would be able to afford a new building without increasing its current debt in a few years as debt is falling off. And a major assumption there is that the rate is 4.5%. And then we had updated all of the projections at the time, and it just showed that the city would be able to afford that, which I think was an important step in giving the MSBA a level of comfort that Holyoke is serious about this, and they're willing and that they can afford to do this. So the earliest day that a new school building could open would be in 2025. The next slide, Aaron. So yeah, as I mentioned, I think I jumped ahead, but this slide just demonstrates that at $4.8 million, that's currently what the city's debt obligation is. If we were to build a new school at 4.5% in 2024, the city would be able to maintain that same level of debt. And that's based on an analysis that Cinder did.
And I will just piggyback of what Anthony Soto is saying here. We reached out to Cinder, and we've also communicated directly with Sean Cronin at the Department of Revenue, who sits on the MSBA board and is critical in these decision-making processes, who had a number of follow-up questions for Cinder that was answered favorably. One of the recommendations from Sean Cronin and DOR is somebody not on mute with the noise in the background? Okay, so we were able to make progress there, and then over the next 3 years, we have about $1.5 million of debt dropping off of debt service. So for example, between FY21 and FY22, we have about $350,000 dropping off in terms of debt service. One of the recommendations from the DOR was that the city in the FY22 budget proposal consider essentially level funding debt service and allocating that difference of $350,000 to what other cities call a capital stabilization fund. And at the end of 3 years, we would have upwards of $1.5 million to put towards lowering the principal of any when we issue the debt at the time we need to a few years from now. And so that's a recommendation that I think the city should keep in mind. But I think overall, as Anthony has said, the good news is that if we just do one school, one middle school, 550 students without going to a debt override, we could afford this in the municipal city budget. I will say this does assume as well that the school department, you may remember in 2019, the school department had made a 30-year commitment of $1 million a year towards the debt service. This assumes that because it's half the project one school, the school department would be contributing $500,000 a year towards the debt service. And we'd have a similar agreement that we had 2 years ago.
Thank you, Mayor Morse. I have a clarifying question for the chair. There was another item, I think 3B, that wrapped in the pre-K to 8 portfolio work. And we organized the presentation to kind of do both at the same time. So I'm going to have to skip around unless we can take those up together.
I'd like to make a motion to take up, along with item 3A, also 3B.
Second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you. So the next slide in the presentation kind of shifts gears a little bit, but it's really tied to the building project. I feel that the school committee or the school department, and when Dr. Zreich was here and when we were, working on a plan to build new middle schools. One of the things that was very loud and clear when receivership came on board, and we solicited feedback from the community, that there was this desire to move forward with distinct elementary, middle, and high schools. It was overwhelming. We did listening tours in 16 and 17. And as we talked about the building projects, it gained a lot of traction, and we didn't want to wait at the time. So we began transitioning to that away from the pre-K to 8 model and into distinct elementary and middle schools, elementary, middle, and high schools. I think that's really important because I feel a lot of folks just tied this process to the middle school building project, but we've already started on a path to undo the K to 8 model and move in that direction. And whether or not we get buildings, that's something that we got to continue to engage the community on and make sure that we do it in a way that's least disruptive, and in a way that the community is aware of.
Anthony, can I ask you a question?
Yes, sure.
Just on fall of 21, Kelly's going to be fully converted to elementary. In Veritas, where it says has all grade, you're not saying all 5th graders to 8th graders are going to be at Veritas. You're just saying it's only going to have those grades, right?
Yeah, Veritas right now, the feeder schools to Veritas are the Kelly zone and the Morgan zone.
Yep.
So Veritas started in 5th grade, and then every year they've grown. So by fall of 2021, they'll finally be grades 5 to 8, but it's not going to be the entire middle school population.
Okay.
They'll just be a 5 to 8 school. So we also opened in 18, we did 2 things. We opened STEM and we opened Veritas. So it allowed Morgan at the time, Morgan and Ian White, to be fully pre-K to 4. And those 2 zones actually, no, Morgan didn't. Morgan fed into Veritas, but Ian White went into the STEM zone. And now we've recently began to phase in Donahue students into the STEM school. So now, all this aside, we still do have something crazy, like 10 different grade configurations for 11 schools. So it's messy, and that's something that we definitely want to start engaging in conversations with the community and make sure we address it, because there's a lot of challenges with having all of these different grade spans, having really small middle schools spread out across the city, and the fact that we've started it. So the only schools right now that are left at K to 8 is McMahon and Sullivan. So I would imagine that in the future, that we're going to have to engage in these conversations, whether we get new buildings or not, whether we get a new building or not.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So Anthony, the number you gave that for the grant for the opening of into 2025 for 550, where did that analysis come from? Is this from the beginning of the first 2 schools that we propose? So this is what you perceive happening in 2025. Where did that number come from?
That was, so the timeline, I'm going to ask Margaret later in this presentation to present like a timeline, assuming the MSBA invites us into the program. But where that came from was our statement of interest that we submitted to the MSBA that was voted on by the city council last year. That was our submittal to the MSBA. Our statement of interest included us opening a new middle school for 550 students. The year is just based on, our analysis and how long MSBA projects have taken in the past. So the year is definitely based on what we've seen in other districts and the timeline that we'll present later. And then the 550 students, that was part of our application to, or our statement of interest that was submitted to MSBA.
Okay, thank you.
So as part of the pre-K to 8 portfolio work, there's, part of the reason that we're moving in this direction, aside from all of the community feedback that we got and the overwhelming sense that the community really wants to move in that direction, is that, and everyone's heard Dr. Reich say this many, many times, we're running too many facilities that are under enrolled. So I believe the average size of our middle school is around 306 students, and the national average is closer to 575, and state average is closer to around 575. So what this is doing is it's just it's lacking a middle school experience that students deserve and that are getting them prepared for high school. Think about having a 6th grade class or a 7th grade class with just 40 students in it. You really only have 2 teachers in that grade level with 40 students, and then you're asking teachers sometimes to teach 2 different contents, teach across different grades. In the K to 8 grade configuration, you're asking one instructional coach to be a specialist across 8 different grades. It's definitely challenging and has become inefficient and resulted in students not getting the experience that they deserve in a critical time in their educational careers. So some quick updates. The next slide. Some quick updates on something that we just found out this morning. We had a meeting with Matt Donovan from the MSBA. And I think in our timeline, I mentioned it earlier, the real next step, we thought that the MSBA was going to take this up on a vote in June. Whether or not we will move forward, they'll invite us into the program. But I'm hearing that there is a potential that they could take that vote as early as April 14th and not June. So, one thing that like I said earlier, and the mayor did a great job explaining, one of the things that the MSBA wanted to see from the city of Holyoke was the financing documents, and we've provided that, and they've confirmed that that's what they were looking for. But there is still 2 things that we have to provide them and between now and then, and one of them being a resolution from the city council expressing support of this project. And then the other one, the city solicitor's office had reached out to the assistant attorney general's office to see if we can continue to use the architects and OPM that we use. So hopefully save some money and time and resources, because those 2 vendors put in a lot of work into the project the first time going around. But we have to reach out to the inspector general's office, not the assistant attorney general's office. And that's something that the MSBA is expecting us to do between now and the time they take a vote, which could be as early as April 14th. I also want to mention that the FY22 cycle, if they do take a vote in April 14th, the FY22 cycle will likely open, where we would have another opportunity to apply for a statement of interest. And that vote would then be taken in December of this year. Margaret, would you be able to walk us through the timeline of what steps are needed if we do get a new building, and if we're invited into the process next month?
Can I chime in just real quickly? It's Todd McGee.
Sure.
And sorry, I'm on the phone. I'm having internet issues and the phone keeps dropping, so I apologize. I mentioned it at the president's report last night at the city council meeting that we would need a resolution. And when I spoke with the MSBA, which was Jack and Matt, they said around June. If it's going to be pushed up till April, can we have the resolution, whatever language we need, so we can present it to city council and get it going as quick as possible? Because I don't want, you know, the understanding was June, but if it's going to be April, we need whatever resolution they want so we can kind of get on it. I don't want to have it lost in the shuffle. So whatever you need, can you or them get it to us so we can act on it?
Yeah, I'd be happy. So I know there's some language out there that was used in Amherst, and Aaron's aware of it. We'd be happy to provide some language that that Amherst used, that the MSBA was satisfied with.
Yeah, if you can send that to me or Jeffrey Anderson Burgos as soon as possible, we can file an order and get it to the full city council and make sure we're on the right track for timing. I just don't want to miss it, because last time I was informed, June, as you said, was the deadline. But now if they're going to make it April, you know, we got to hustle.
And Todd,
Yeah,
when
and
is it? Yeah, Todd, just so remember, when is our next meeting? In 2 weeks, correct? From this Tuesday.
Correct,
Yes.
and that's why I bring it up, because I know it's 2 weeks, but 2 weeks goes pretty quickly.
Right.
3 weeks.
And I just
3
want to
weeks,
make
yeah.
sure you know, if they're changing the timeline, I'm not saying that's good or bad. I just want, you know, it's brought up.
Right.
Let's be proactive and get it done. So whatever language they want, we can get it before the full council and vet it and go forward. When I had my meeting with them and Senator Vilas, which was a very good meeting, you know, they wanted that resolution, which is absolutely fine. But at the same time, you know, April was mentioned, but it was, the timeline was thought to be more June. If that's changing, which is absolutely fine, since we're in this meeting, let's make absolutely sure we're all on the same page and do it at the same time at what we need to do when we don't miss the timeline. That's my whole point.
Sure.
And Anthony, can I ask a follow up to that? Or
Sure. I just wanted to respond.
okay.
Todd, do you know Aaron Linville? Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
You probably have it in your email inbox by now.
Every third.
No, we're gonna get it to you. That was a little joke. We'll definitely
9 a.m. every other Thursday. Yes, I know.
I'm going to take that as a compliment. Thank you, Todd and Anthony.
Phenomenal. Let me be real clear. Phenomenal detail, absolutely up to date on everything. It's every other Tuesday. I'm, you know, sometimes I got a conflict, but absolutely outstanding communication.
Nice of you to say. Thank you. I'll try not to have my very loud toddler in the background for tomorrow morning's meeting. Sorry about that before, Alex.
Oh, sorry. I didn't realize it was your child. I wouldn't have.
No, he's a fiery redhead. So I guess he was making his St. Patrick's Day celebrations known.
Solidarity with the other redhead. And who am I to talk? I have a dog that's making all those noises.
Mr. Murphy, you had a question?
Yeah, thank you. And if it's okay, as far as I understand the resolution, basically the city council needs to say that we are in favor of working with MSBA to build one school, and we believe that we have the financial capacity to be able to afford that, assuming we get the financial support of the MSBA. I thought we not only need to say we're in favor of new schools, but also that we've analyzed the financial data and we feel comfortable with the financial data that we can, in fact, support this should we get an MSBA approval. And so, I mean, I think our language could be relatively simple. If that's what they're asking for, I would think the city council says they're in favor, has reviewed the documents. I know Councilor McGivern is here, and I know he's had some of this in his finance committee. And obviously that would be a major, and they also has, I'm assuming he probably has a meeting between our next meeting. He can also review those in case there's any councils that have any doubt. But I would think those are the two steps, that we are in favor of building a new middle school as long as we get MSBA funding and we have examined the financial resources and the city is comfortable with our ability to pay for it.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right, Councilor Murphy, and it would just remind the committee on both ends that the resolution obviously isn't a financial commitment. The MSBA just wants to know that the council is interested and engaged and supportive of this. Obviously, there would be future conversations. I will say the advantage of moving it up to April, if we were to get advanced in April, it would trigger the creation of a school building committee, which would then be appointed by the mayor at the time to actually start having a conversation about which site are we using and why, and doing public engagement. And so we can't officially begin that process until we're actually given the green light by MSBA to do that. And they just want to know that the city's invested in this, but obviously the council will have other benchmarks to make a decision about financing when we have actual numbers that the city council will have to consider and take a vote on.
So LISI, you had your hand up. You want to speak?
I'll just really briefly say, I think, number one is the support for the schools. Number two is that we have the financial capability. And number three, there's a willingness. I think that's the key piece there, the willingness. So I think that has to get worded into a resolution in some way, shape, or form. But it would be great to take a look at what Amherst filed and work off of that.
I think you guys are all right. I mean, the MSBA is paying attention. They realize, some of the transitions that we're going through right now. And, they've expressed some concern, but I think that if the city council were to bound together and write something that shows that they're in support of it, that'll definitely go a long way with getting the MSBA to feel that, that although despite everything else going on, that there's support, obviously from the schools, and that there's support from the city in the form, something in writing, in the form of a resolution. So I think you're all right on with what you're thinking, and like I said, Aaron will send over an example that was that of a resolution that Amherst filed to the MSBA. Any other questions on that before we get into get into the timeline of if we're invited in, what that timeline would look like? I'm going to ask Margaret if you could walk us through this short and long timeline. I'd really appreciate it.
Absolutely, Anthony. It's wonderful to see all of you and new faces as well. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So this very brief timeline is something that I drafted for Aaron in conversation. It's sort of underpinned by the MSBA approval points. So these sort of buckets on the left side of the screen are the way the MSBA defines the different steps. So what we did before for the two-school project was we went all the way through the schematic design process. Then there was a public vote, and then obviously now we're back. So this time, I think what we're looking at is either April or June for this process. The MSBA does meet 6 times a year, and there's usually a period of time that can be anywhere from 3 to 6 weeks that material has to be submitted ahead of time. So it will be really important to find out if they are going to have an April date when they need everything. But what they would do is they would vote either on the April date, which is April 14th, or the June date, which is June 23rd, to move you into eligibility. And then there are some steps that the city would have to take in order to begin feasibility, but many of those steps will be foreshortened because we've been through this process before. So in the shorter timeline version, I think that could reasonably be completed by the end of the year. The longer timeline would be, I think, probably subject to the whole issue about, where kids are going to go and how the kids get sorted to schools within the system. Because although we have, obviously looked at a lot of different design options, one thing that's really different is that the whole design process is underpinned by a citywide educational program. So we would need to come back to them and say, well, before we had 2 schools, and so the middle school education across the city looked like this. Now we're going to have 1 school that would look like that. So that is what would be being sorted out in that period, as well as, re-looking at the question of renovations or new construction. Once the building committee and the city council had approved the approach and the preferred type of program, you'd be moving into schematic design. Now you see these drifting a little bit further apart, although the timelines are really the same. What's really sort of underpinning the difference is taking more time for feasibility if the city needs it. Once the schematic design is completed, it gets submitted to the MSBA for their approval. And once they have voted on it, then you execute the funding agreement, which would be based on the bonding. I didn't really want to take a guess at how long that might take, although if you had all your ducks in a row, hopefully it could happen fairly quickly. The shorter timeline gives you, I guess, about 2 or 3 months for that to happen. And then you are starting into the design process, the longer process. The second column starts that fall. In both cases, it seems to me that the goal has to be, or ideally should be, to have the building open for the beginning or some part of the school year 2025-2026. So in the shorter version, it's open for the fall. In the longer version, it's probably open for the spring, so 6 months later.
We're talking fall of 25 and spring of 26 then, right?
Yes, that's right. That should say spring of 26. Thank you, Terry.
Okay.
So Margaret, I got a question. So the feasibility study has to be done again, even though you guys already had, or is this project being reconsidered with the last locations you was considering? So that means the feasibility study is not good for what you did before?
Well, yes and no. I mean, I think, as I mentioned, the big thing that's different no matter what is that we'd have to kind of rethink and tell them how middle school was being addressed for all the kids across the city, right? And I think it's tied up with the where Anthony started, which is talking about how you are moving to this middle school model anyway. I mean, when we did the previous submission, it's important to remember that we were kind of thinking outside the box about what that would look like, because that process hadn't started. Now the process has started, so we'll be kind of explaining how that works. In terms of the design process, I mean, I would say if the city wants to move forward with one of the buildings as was designed and estimated, I think we're there. Like there's, we're done with schematic design, in fact, so that time frame becomes shorter. But it's not clear to me, and I think this is a key point of discussion, whether the city wants to go back and revisit the question of renovations, or if we are really only talking about new construction.
So this gives us an option to also do a new construction, not necessarily what we propose is it gives us an option to propose a new construction, not necessarily remodeling the ones that we mentioned before.
Well, you could, but then you've got to take the time to do that work. I mean, I was assuming when I put this timeline together that the city would, briefly relook at that. I am presuming probably commit to new construction and
Okay.
then you would go forward. And I mean, that gets you the best value in terms of the
Okay.
services, because you're not paying to have a new design. It's not really my services, it's the architect's services. If you go back to square one and say, no, we want a new design, then you're paying to do that again. So.
Could I ask another question, Madam Chair?
Yes. Go ahead.
So Margaret, let's just say the schematic design, and I'm under the assumption that we're building one of the buildings in one of the locations.
Okay.
So, and I'm assuming that the state is going to say, you know, that works for us. We've seen it. We think it was a good plan in 2019. We're going to think it's a good plan now. Yes, you got to have another alternative where you're going to go. So two things. Number one, keeping the same schematic design, would that potentially cut off more months than the June of 2022, where we might actually get to the point where we could be spring of 25 instead of fall of 25?
Possibly. I mean, I would say it wouldn't be solely dependent on that. You'd want, you know, the whole project funding agreement piece, which I've left pretty mushy here, obviously,
Yeah.
to be pretty tight. But yes, I mean, I don't think that's impossible. I will say, since you brought it up, you know, I think one of the reasons the MSBA has been really supportive of this project, well, there's, I mean, in my mind, there's two reasons. So one is that I think they see that Holyoke, you know, really needs new middle schools, and I think they agree with the shift of this that's being proposed in terms of grade configuration. But I also have to say, because they've told me this, you know, I think they really liked the design that was put forward. It's not my design, so, you know, I can say that without, you know, any hubris. At the time it was proposed, it had the lowest cost per square foot of any building that they had in the pipeline. And they really liked that. They saw it as a real leader. You know, they're always looking for the projects that are super cost effective from a construction perspective. So.
Thank you.
Gladys, do you see me?
I'm sorry, Greg. Go ahead, Rebecca. Go ahead.
Thank you. So just want to make sure I understand in my mind the bins that I'm making. So feasibility is about educational arrangements and the way that we're servicing the children across the schools. It's like the plan for how we place students in the schools and what sort of services and
curriculum. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the feasibility study, and then the schematic design is how do we build a building and other, you know, services in order to deliver whatever we decide in our feasibility plan. Is that how I think? Is that
yeah? The only thing I would clarify is that it's kind of, feasibility is two pieces in a typical project. So one is the educational program, which is, you know, looking broadly at the district and how a particular project fits into it. And the second piece is looking at options for renovation addition, new construction, and picking one. Mm-hmm. So at the end of feasibility, typically you have those two pieces done, mm-hmm. And then you develop the schematic design of the project that you put forward and that they've agreed to.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so feasibility is still like an envisioning process, whereas schematic design is building out that visioning process.
Correct.
Okay, and then I just want to follow up a little bit on the way that these two get connected. You know, I definitely think that we want to expedite this process as much as we can by using the two different designs that we have already developed from the previous, you know, round of going through this process. However, if we're doing one school, is there any sort of possibility to make minor changes, minor adjustments to the schematic design that would create a bigger building and service more students across the district? Am I being fanciful here?
No, no. I mean, I wish Dory was. It's really a Dory question, but right. I would say if that's a question, I think that really probably needs to be looked at in terms of the two different sites. My instinct is that it may be easier to make the building bigger on the Lawrence site than on the Peck site, but I'd really want to defer to to Dory, who has, you know, a kind of better, since she developed the design, a better instinctive thing. I think you'd want to start out and look at the two and say, if we want to make it bigger, where's the best place to do it? Where's the most feasible place to do it? That should be part of the feasibility piece.
Right. However, I do want to always keep the schematic design anchored in the feasibility.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that would be a question for the school department in terms of, like, you know, what sort of capacity do we need if we're only doing one building? Like, can we make things happen with the two building designs that we had, but in one building? Or, you know, to what extent would we want to modify or expand one of these designs just, you know, slightly? Because again, we want to be able to utilize and expedite the process by using what we have in hand. But yeah, anything we do with schematic design has to be paired with feasibility. So in some ways, the district needs to inform us about, you know, what the educational programs and how we want to, you know, configure the school and the services to begin with.
Yeah, I think from a programming standpoint, we wouldn't want to be building a school for more than 550 students. We were very clear early on, and as we were going through and getting feedback, that a bigger middle school like that wasn't something that the district desired. We think 550 is the right number, but your question really ties into the outreach that we have to do on the pre-K to 8 portfolio work. We think that's a great question that you're bringing up. You know, in a scenario where we have a new middle school, we're still, for 550 students, we still have to address the rest of our middle school students, which could be a combination of, you know, another school, another middle school, and maybe one, it could be up to 3 middle schools, 5 to 8, or another middle school that can fit the rest of them. So those are some conversations that we really want to talk about, independent of the new building. The new building would be for 550. I don't think that we should be building anything for more students, but we would look at our existing portfolio, and as part of the outreach on the pre-K to 8 middle school portfolio work, that's some of the conversations that we want to start having with the community. Erin, do you have anything to add?
I do really agree with what you said, Anthony. Like, if we did unless we did an 1100 middle school, which we wouldn't want, it's too large, it would be much more expensive. Like, it doesn't really make sense, given the other number of students that we have, to have like a slightly bigger than 550 school. I think that the original design of the 550 makes a lot of sense. There are like really strong ways we can make it work with our other buildings in terms of having middle school programming. And it's like big enough that the kids will have the variety of special classes, that we can have teams of teachers working together, while also every kid being very known. So, but like Anthony said, like, we're super eager to have that conversation with all stakeholders.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
And I said this at our meetings, and I think two things. Number one, we need to go with one of these plans, because what you're asking the city council to make a resolution on financing is based on one of these two plans. So if we were to do something larger and we're adding $4 or $5 or $10 million, we are now changing the financial dynamics, and we would need a whole new report and all those kind of things. And for all that to happen prior to April 6th, I think that would be pretty difficult. The other thing, and I've said this consistently, I think we build one school, and with a plan that in the next 5 to 10 years after that, the goal is to have the second school so that we would have all of your middle school students in buildings that are 10 to 15 years old. And then all your other schools would be elementary schools and obviously getting into your high school. And I do think that among, as I've said many times, and Aaron knows he gets tired of hearing from me, I think we need to present the entire picture and have a plan that goes out 10 or 15 or 20 years. But I think for right now, with what we need to get for April 6th, it's got to be one of those two plans. And I also, and Margaret, you can correct me if I'm wrong, because I know we've had this discussion when we were able to go to City Hall. You know, I know the 550 it was designed, but if there was an extra capacity, as I understood, it could go to about 588 or something along that lines and still be within the framework, so that if you ended up with more kids going to middle school, you could end up going to 1150 or 1180 and still be within those school frameworks.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, it's Todd, if I may.
Go ahead, Todd.
All right,
I don't see
thank
you,
you.
but I can hear you.
I, all the points I think are absolutely valid. I think for if the April deadline is a true deadline, I think the first thing we need to do is give the resolution as being required as, you know, we are in favor of a middle school. What location, how it's done, number of students, and all that is what we can vet as we go forward. But I think the MSBA, from my conversation with them, was they want to make sure that we are committed to looking to build a school. Now, they didn't say location or numbers or future projects or how to revitalize everything else. It was more of, they want to help us, keep us in line for a middle school. Are we willing to do that based on our finances? Cinder has said finances, we could do it. Next step is giving that resolution. From there, we can then piggyback on to everything else that we're talking about and then vet the whole process. I just think because the timeline now is shortened, we really should get that resolution ready to say, hey, look, we're eager, we're ready to do this. Let's go forward. What as a committee should we be producing for them? So then the next steps are everything that we're talking about, we then hash that out. But I don't want to miss the timeline, because if we miss that, then we get pushed back in line, and that could be a year or two down the road. We all know we need a middle school. If they're going to be willing to help us do that, we should be proactive to do that. And then as we go forward, we can vet all that stuff that we're talking about. So to me, I know we all want to get into the details, but let's get that resolution to them, which is their request, and then proceed with everything else. So I don't want to say that everything that we're talking about is bad, but give them what they want, so then that we can proceed forward with everything else is my request. So how we do that, what we want to do to get it before the council as soon as possible, because the timeline has now been somewhat shortened. Thank you.
Thank you. So the our last slide on this discussion is really some guiding questions that I don't think we need to. I don't really think we should be answering them today, but we'll send them to you. It's really just getting feedback on how you guys. I know the immediate next steps, but one of the things that I think is really important is that the last time we went through this process, there were a lot of people that felt like, despite us doing 25 community meetings, despite us having, really doing making our best effort to solicit input, there was a little bit of criticism that we didn't involve the right people or get input. So we would appreciate some advice on how we move forward, not only with this pre-K to 8 discussion, but as we, if we're invited into the MSBA project, how could we better solicit input from folks that felt they didn't have a voice the last time we did this. And again, I'm not asking for that now, but we really would appreciate some advice on that moving forward. And we'll send these guiding questions to each member of the city council. And
if I may, Anthony, that's a great question. And I know a lot of counselors have said that's what more information to the public is best. So I think the first step is get the resolution to the council, get it to the MSBA to say, hey, look, this is what we want to do. And from that step forward, we set up a website. We be proactive in getting the information out there so that people have better understanding of the process. Kind of like what East Hampton did, and it was Nicole LaChapelle who came into our city council as a mayor. She didn't have to, but she willingly came in and gave us details as to how they did it to inform the public. So we can take, the examples from that mayor and use those, steal them if you want to call it, and then use that to inform our public as to what we're doing, be more transparent, and get that information out there. Those are all good details, but my thing is more of, we got a timeline. Let's get that timeline fixed, which is the resolution, get it done. So then that way we can take these proactive steps to then get the information out to the public so that they know what's going on. Because unfortunately, last time it was kind of pointing the fingers as to we didn't have enough information.
Can I have a chance to speak? So I'm thinking, so to be honest with you, if anything moves forward, Anthony, I would love to see that the Hispanic community or the Latino community really gets a moment to really speak on this more than the last time this got voted out, actually by our voters who are registered taxpayers, right? According to what happened in this turnaround, that we didn't get this opportunity to build. I think we have to do more efforts. I don't care how we do it. We got to figure it out. If we put these surveys in the backpacks of the children's, if we have to make phone calls, if we have to do emails, we have to do text messaging. But we got to get that 80% or 90% of our Latino children's families to be giving, the feedback as to what they like to see. Because I think we missed out on that. I don't care how many community meetings happen, but there's no way that our community people did give feedback a lot on that. And that is, the fact about this. And I want to make sure that, as long as I'm around, if I have to help with the surveying, doing whatever, I'm going to do that, because we got to get this feedback from the people that are going to be utilizing most of this facility. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
So to Council President McGee, so Todd, let's say if this committee were to make a resolution tonight, which is going to come before the council on April 6th, would that be, we would be able to act on it as a committee recommendation. This is a resolution that we're recommending, correct?
I think so, Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes.
It really is, as Councilor Murphy has said and everyone else says, let's get the resolution out. It doesn't have to be elaborate. It's more of, we are willing to go through a middle school project. And what site, we still have to vet, but we're all in favor of that. And we welcome the MSBA to help us in that process. So we go forward just the way they've asked. So by showing that, I think that's what they want to see, is that we are committed to the project. Now, April comes, and I'm not an expert at this process, but they say, okay, we're going to keep you in the pipeline. We'll prove it where. Then we can start getting into all these details, the numbers and everything else. My worry is that we don't give them the resolution on time and we miss that process. And they have been very generous in the sense of, as Mayor Morris has said, we can use the prior examples, whether redeveloping PAC or Chestnut. And so they've been very generous to help us along the process. My thing is, if they're willing to help us, give them what they want, and then everything else that we're talking about, which is all great points, we can start doing that after they approve us in April, if that's now the new deadline. So let's give them the resolution they want, and then we start vetting this stuff that we're all talking about. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we pass a resolution, and I'm going to read a resolution that anybody can amend, but I'm going to recommend that we pass this resolution from this committee and send it to the full city council. Resolved, and I'll read relatively slowly, resolved that the city council endorses the plan to apply it to MSBA to build one new middle school and has received information from our financial advisors indicating that the city has the financial ability to afford the new school within the city budget. And the city council supports that financial review.
Is there somebody wants a second, or?
I just did.
I'm sorry. Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Madam
Okay,
Chair,
thank you. Yes.
this is Councilor GREANEY speaking. I just had a question.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any, I tuned in late, I'm sorry, but has there been a site picked yet?
No.
No.
Thank you.
If I may, I do want to let everybody on the phone know that the statement of interest that was submitted by HPS and the City Council last April did name PEC as the site, so we were required to name a site. I understand the interest in talking about this about the site, but I just want to make sure people knew that PEC was the first one named. Thank you.
So Anthony and Aaron, are you both okay with that resolution?
I am, yeah. I really appreciate how quickly you guys acted on that.
Okay.
You all acted on that.
And how focused you are in like really recognizing like the key next step. And we promise to be equally focused and have information to you this week.
I'll be on your case, Aaron.
Thank you so much.
Irene, I seen your hand up. You want to, Irene, did you raise your hand for a minute?
No, I think it's Libby.
Okay.
Libby's had it up.
Yes, Madam Chair, and well, Joe had it up before me.
Libby, go right ahead.
Mine is a quick question. Thank you, Joe. And if I may, Madam Chair, I just wanted to ask, so I know that we had to name a site and it was PEC, but that's just like placeholder. If there's any like changes in the future, we can shift like to another site, right?
Yes.
Yes, okay, thank you.
We would have to work with the MSBA to understand that process better.
Yeah,
Would it help if I chimed in on this a little bit?
It would, Margaret. Thank you.
So I think, back to that timeline, it's in that feasibility time frame that they want you to examine this and have that discussion. So Libby, I don't know if you saw that, if you were here when I was talking about that timeline. So in that feasibility process, and Terry asked me, could you do it faster? Well, yeah, if you want to say, we're going to do it at PAC, we're going to do a new construction building. I mean, the MSBA would be fine with that. But, I think you all may feel that this is in some ways the kind of squishiest part of this, because while the MSBA, I think, is keen to have you back in the process and to help you build a building, I think there are still a lot of questions, you know, in the community about, you know, what's the right path, what's the right location. So, but it's in that time frame. It's right at the beginning of the project that gets sorted out.
Yeah. And if I may, Madam Chair, and thank you so much for that clarification. I just know that, like, as Councilor LeBron said, we still have a lot of like work to do. I know that a lot of meetings have taken place, but we really want to like capture the, you know, the essence of the people that are going to be attending these schools. Like, what is it that they want to see? And that might change like the plans moving forward. So I'm looking forward to being able to help in any way to engage the community and providing that feedback so we can make a really good decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
If I could, Chair.
Joe, yes, I see your hand up. Go ahead, man.
Thank you. I have a question and a comment. On the question, the design phase, how are we paying for that? During the last go around, we bonded. It was part of the bond that allowed us to go through the full design phase with 80% reimbursement from the MSBA. Do we have a cost accumulating, and do we have an idea how we're going to pay for any new costs this time?
So, Aaron, I'll take that too. So at the moment, there's no cost accumulating. You know, Aaron reached out to myself and Dory, and well, actually Whitney, I've heard, you know, from different folks. You know, Dory and I are happy at this point until you kind of get past this MSBA eligibility vote, you know, to do whatever we can to help. In order to undertake the feasibility work and the schematic design work, we would need to negotiate a fee for that. It's a little squishy right now because feasibility will determine, you know, what you're doing for schematic design, but you would need, in order to move to the next step with the MSBA, you need to appropriate money for that to get to this completion of schematic design. And at the moment, it would be hard for me to estimate what that number would be because it really depends on how many options you're looking at and whether you're sort of starting over for the schematic design. So there's quite a range. I mean, another way to think about it would be, you know, just for those of you who weren't familiar before, the prior process was, I think, a total of 1.1 million for that entire process, which took, I think, about 1.5 years. Amherst has recently, and actually, if I remember correctly, there had been money appropriated for a project on another school project that basically was sort of, no, we're not going to do that project, we're going to do this project. So that was where the money came from. I mean, in general, if you were starting from scratch, $750,000, Amherst just appropriated about that amount to do, you know, a single building on a site. But I think if the city is going to sort of zero in and do something that is really using what was done previously, it would obviously be much less than that.
Thank you, Margaret. And I like your enthusiasm, but if you're happy, you got to smile for us.
She's dealing with
me. The lighting is so bad in here, I can't even believe you can see my face. So.
On the resolution, if I could just make a quick comment, I will support a resolution. I support the concept of a middle school, and I'm not afraid, but I'm happy to say that. But I want to make some suggestions on the wording that's being proposed here. We all know that the city council is going to have the final vote, and that's when we vote for the actual bond. You know, it's going to be a while before we get to that. We have to go through revisit the design phase, make some decisions, and there is a lot of work to be done. The resolution needs to be upfront. I understand our good friends with the MSBA, why they're doing that, and we need to word it correctly. I'm hearing this for the first time tonight. I had a great conversation with the mayor this afternoon. I'm comfortable if Cinda McNary says this is doable. She's been our financial advisor since 1975. She knows what she's talking about. She knows us inside out. So I think we can hang our hat on that. But to ask city councilors on April 6th, several who will be hearing this for the first time, I think it's a little bit too much to commit strongly to the finance stuff. I think we have to say we're going to work, towards putting that within our reach and update the city councilors on where we stand and why we believe we can do this. But if we want to have a unanimous vote on April 6th, or don't forget, the city council is probably going to want this to go to committee, which means now it's April 20th. We really need to word this, appropriately for the ears of some city councilors that will hear it for the first time. So I suggest we tune it down a little bit and talk about why we want to build the middle school. And as far as selling it, Gladys, I agree with everything you said, but we have to reach out to people who are not vested in schools and remind them that this entire community needs to be vested in schools, because it's how everything in our future is geared on, is the education of our children. And if we don't buy that and buy into that as a community, we're going to have trouble selling anything. But if we could just tune down the resolution, is my suggestion, it might be better to get the vote of the city council that way.
If I can answer, Councilman
Yes.
Muir. Again, based on what we've heard on Thursday mornings, is that MSBA wants the city council to talk economic. One thing, Councilor McGivern, I believe, and maybe I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that the financial documentation is in Finance Committee as well. And so maybe you can have a hearing prior to April 6th, just reviewing Cinder's analysis of the school project. And then that would come from Finance Committee indicating your recognition of the financial capacity. I understand what you're saying, that it's going to be future counselors that have got to make this decision. But as I understand it, MSBA wants the city council to recognize, I guess, that we can do this financially. And again, correct me if I'm wrong, Anthony or Aaron.
Yeah, and I would just add, this is Alex, that I think the information from Cinder and the assurance from Sean Cronin addressed their initial financial questions. And I do think a resolution expressing support from the council in general to moving us forward to the next step, that they're overall supportive of a project and have reviewed preliminary financial information, would be sufficient without committing to a financial obligation in the future. Like they don't need to hear from the city council in terms of the finances. They will eventually, but they wanted to hear from our financial advisor and Sean Cronin. And I feel like they had that information and they feel better about that. So I think they're more looking for a resolution that the council supports us moving forward in this process and supports the concept of building and paying for in the future one new middle school.
Madam Chair.
It makes a lot more sense to word it like that, because we don't know the final cost.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Green, go ahead.
Yes, just one additional comment. Once again, I apologize for being late, but I think that the state reimbursement, hopefully at 80%, is going to be critical with this project too. I don't know what how they're going to deal with it, but that's absolutely going to be critical for the voters of Holyoke and the council, I think. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead, Juan. I can hear you.
So this is, first of all, I want to thank everybody who's on here tonight. I also want to thank my colleagues, other city councilors who are here. But I feel it is critical and is very important. Now I'm giving you a freebie because today is St. Patrick's Day, but it is very important for all city councilors to be part of this conversation, because if you're going to be taking down notes and talking during council and then shooting this project down, you should be part of this conversation, because this is going to help Holyoke and its future and the children move forward. If we can't have all the city councilors here not being part of this conversation, we have a big problem. And then we also have a big problem with people misinforming the community. That's another issue that we need to address. And trust me, we'll get to the bottom of that later. But it is very important, I reiterate, for every single counselor to be in these meetings. The future of Holyoke depends on us. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? So on the motion of the resolution that was first proposed by sorry, I'm trying to think here. That was previously proposed. Are we still on this, or we're considering to change that by Terry?
We voted on it, right? So we voted
We
on
already
it.
because we voted on it, so that's
Right,
why
so
I'm
somebody
saying.
has to make a motion for an amendment,
Or we would reconsider at this point.
right?
So, yeah, so do we want to
So let's
reconsider
make a
the
I'll make a
motion?
motion to reconsider, and then Terry, are you working?
Yeah, I'm kind of amending it. So
Okay.
I still, again, going, and I guess I really want Aaron and to confirm whether or not we need to talk, because again, I know, Mary, you indicated that they don't, but all the way through this process, I was told that we needed the city council indicating we understand the financial indication impacts, and that we are in favor of it and believe that we can afford it.
Madam Chair, I think Margaret would like to speak.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in, and some of you are really tired of hearing from me about the reimbursement rate issue. But Mr. Greaney, you and I haven't met, so I just want to chime in and unfortunately recycle of what I said before. So and I say this as someone who has is working for a lot of gateway communities. We've worked in Chelsea, we're working in Lawrence right now. Obviously, we worked in Holyoke. It is not true that the city will get 80% and if what I call an effective 80% reimbursement rate. It would be great if it were true. And this was an issue that there was a lot of discussion about the last round. And I do not want to divert this discussion down that path, because I'd rather take an opportunity for anybody who wants a refresher course on that to kind of bring them up to speed. But I just want to make sure that people know that if you go out to the public, and I think also to the other members of the city council, with that understanding, it's incorrect. And it has to do, the core issue is that the MSBA currently caps the reimbursement on the cost per square foot, and their current cap is well below. It's about a third. It's about 2/3 of what a kind of realistic construction cost is. And so that does have a pretty significant impact. Holyoke's not alone in experiencing this. It's sort of across the board. It's a really good article just published this week in Commonwealth Magazine by someone in Lynn. If you want to look it up, you can Google, I think it's MSBA state funding formula is not helping gateway cities. So that's all I want to say about it. But I think, the talking points about this issue are really important, and not sort of going out with a certain line that then you have to sort of step back from is really important.
Thank you, Margaret. And I just wanted to quickly.
Yes, but I just want to comment on that.
Excuse me, can you hold on? We have other people. Mr. Greaney?
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Let me, Mr. Morse had his hand up, and I also have Anthony. Then you go. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks. I just want to respond to that. Thank you.
Alex.
I just wanted to and thank Margaret for that, but move back to the resolution conversation between Councilor McGivern and Councilor Murphy. I think both councilors are saying very similar things. So I think we all agree sort of what we need to provide is just a wording of it. And I think there's a way to word it that doesn't bind the city council to some financial obligation, but that you've been exposed to or presented with preliminary financial information that makes the council feel comfortable moving forward in the process, and that we support the concept of one additional middle school. And so I think that's general enough and specific enough to advance it. And so I'm obviously not on the committee, but I would suggest that there be a language change there that all councilors feel comfortable with.
Yeah, I've tried to change it if I can, so. And I've tried to, similar to what the mayor just indicated, if I might,
So,
Madam Chair.
yeah,
Or,
yes. Are you gonna read it now, or
yeah,
can I
I was
go?
gonna read it, and I've tried to make it not quite as much of a financial commitment, but still indicate that we've seen financial information that indicates. So it would be resolved that the city council endorses the plans to apply
Let's see that.
to MSBA to build one middle school and has received information from our financial advisor indicating that the city has the capacity to finance the construction.
Given, can I ask Mr. McGivern, so he was the one who
Yeah.
meant, how do you feel about that? Joe?
Gladys, it's fine. It's the point I'm trying to make is it's the cart before the horse. If we start talking solely about financing the project, I'm not saying ignoring the financing of the project. That's a key, but you know we're not going to, you know, it's going to be a year or two before we're even looking at voting on financing the project. And you know, the MSBA is asking a current city council that's facing election in November to buy into, you know, I think we should buy in conceptually that yes, we support building a middle school for all the right reasons, and we will work with the MSBA. And I see Senator Vilas is with us and with our state delegation to make it work. I mean, that's what we should be doing. You know, this has got to be a joint partnership with the state and with the you know, with the good residents of Holyoke who are going to foot the bill.
Okay, so how do you feel about the resolution that is being presented to us? Because we had requested to do an amendment, and now you okay with what is being said?
I'll Gladys, I'll support it. I understand. You know, I'll be glad to support it. I'm just being the devil's advocate for when we if we vote on it April 6th, which is going to be hard with the wording.
Right.
And Councilor Murphy, the stuff from Cinder.
What was that?
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I didn't hear you.
What I was just gonna say, I don't think we can get away from saying that this is gonna require funding. This is no way that we can write something that never, you know, get us to understand or believe that any of the city council thinks that we're not gonna have to put some investment or capital into this. So, I mean, you know, it's either they're not gonna get surprised in the 2 years coming down when we decide that we gotta front the money. So something has to give here in a sense of us understanding that money from us is gonna take place and from our taxpayers. So bottom line. Anyone else?
I'd be glad to comment on some things about our total budget and what the impact of the schools has had on our total budget. But I don't think that's the purpose of this evening. I think the purpose is to buy into why we want to build a middle school and the good work that this committee and Anthony and everyone is doing on not just the middle schools, but on separating the K-8 schools, which was proven to be a disaster. And we're doing the right thing. But we've got problems. We had a negative free cash situation because of deficits in the budget that budget managers didn't do correctly. You want to get me going?
Okay. No. Okay, Anthony, I see your hand up, Anthony.
Okay. I'm shutting up right there.
Not to belabor it, Councilor GREANEY mentioned a couple things. I don't know if he was here when we went over the financial piece, but this wasn't something what Cinder provided was reflected. It reflected a realistic percentage or the effective rate, and what her analysis said was that we could keep the same debt that we have now in 4 years as other debt falls off. So I think that's an important point to make because the analysis that Cinder put forward wasn't at that 80% that you had mentioned. And also you mentioned about it going to the voters. I don't think that her analysis shows that this would fit within the city's budget, that we wouldn't have to go out to the voters again and ask for an override. I just wanted to make that point because I thought it was important.
Aaron, recognizing Aaron,
Madam
and
Chair.
then Rebecca. Recognizing Aaron and then Rebecca, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If anyone has specific suggestions of what else the City Council might like to see for April 6th, I believe it is, but above and beyond what I provided in the joint committee memo, obviously the resolution language, but if people feel like they need more information ahead of time to review, please let me know what that is. My email address is elinville@hps.holyoke.ma.us. That would be really helpful to me. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gladys, since you had me
Go
in
ahead.
queue, I'm just
Yes,
gonna go
Rebecca,
ahead.
go ahead. I'm sorry, Rebecca. I'm
So
trying to look
I
at.
wonder if the language should just say something to the effect of the City Council has reviewed the financial documents that demonstrate that we have the ability to fund one school within our bonding capacity. So like that, I mean, just we recognize that we have the ability. We're not committed to anything, you know, in terms of some of the concerns that Joe raised, but we recognize our ability to fund this within our bonding capacity. And this council has the interest in moving forward and continuing in the process, whatever the pipeline, you know, would be. I don't know if that was close to what you were getting at, Councilor Murphy.
I think that's pretty much yeah, because I just basically, I got to the point, if that's okay, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
You know, the amended resolution basically says that we've got a financial, we are in favor of a new middle school, and we've got a financial report that indicates that we could do it. It hasn't said that we are going to go out and fund it. It doesn't make that commitment, but it does say that the information we have leads, you know, puts us in support of one school, and the financial documents appear favorable to doing it without committing the council to make a fund. But it does, we have to mention, again, I could be wrong, but Anthony and Aaron, and before them, Dr. Reich have told me that, you know, finances have to be part of this discussion, or an endorsement of finances were part of this discussion. Right. And again, I know the mayor has indicated that's not the case, but I just think what I've amended based on all the comments, I think does what we wanted to do, recognize we want to build a new middle school, that we have a resolution to do that, recognizes that we've had our financial advisor provide us financial information, which makes it look feasible. And pretty much ended there now.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Yeah. Go ahead.
Councilor GREANEY once again. I just want to respond. You know, as a 35-year educator, I recognize the need, you know, for new school. I just wanted to make the point that in order to sell this, you know, the finances, we have to be very transparent with the finances, and we have to get the public to buy into it. And I think the financial picture is very important. I recognize the need. I like the concept, but the financial aspect of this definitely has to be transparent. Thank you.
I'll make a motion that we adopt the amended resolution.
So moved.
Anyone? Niles, did you see you? Niles, did I see you raise your hand? I'm sorry, hold on.
No,
Niles? No.
I'm all set. Thank you.
Set.
And does
Anyone
Councilor
else?
McGivern have his hand up?
Yes, he does.
Joe?
I'm sorry, Joe. Yes, go ahead. I'm sorry, I gotta keep looking to the side here, back and forth. Thank you. Go ahead.
It's my Papa Smurf hand. I was just going to let everybody know we'll book the finance committee to go over Cinder's numbers on either March 31st or April 1st, and we'll have that report ready for April 6th.
Thank you, Joe.
Okay. So are we in the back to the resolution?
So you want me to read it one more time, or we
Yes, please, and we're gonna need this last vote. Let's move on.
Okay. Again, resolve that the city council endorses the plans to apply to MSBA to build one new middle school and has received information from our financial advisor indicating the city has the capacity to finance the construction.
That's clear enough.
Oh,
Talks
yes.
about finances. Anybody else wants to?
I would only say we should clarify that one building of 550 students. I know that has been really important in the past. I think that sounds perfect though.
So I'll amend the amendment to make it build one middle school for 550 students. Is that okay?
I think, can we recognize
Okay.
Niles? I believe he
I move that we accept the amendment as stated.
Thank you, Niles.
Anybody wants to second it?
Second.
Okay, so sorry, is everybody in agreement? Can I have a aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Okay, so we're on. Anything else on this particular matter?
Just on the finance committee, it's a done deal. It's going to be March 31st. It can't be April 1st because it's Wanda Anderson's birthday.
6:30, Joe?
Joe, you ratted me out.
6:30, March 31st.
Okay.
Thank you all for your
Let's
support.
finish with the presentation because I know we got interrupted in the presentation. Did we finish the presentation, Anthony?
You're on mute, Anthony.
I believe we complied with the third order that was on the agenda.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So, but your presentation was completed though?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Make a
So,
motion.
we have one more item on the agenda. Jeff, can you let us
Two
see
more
the agenda, please, for a minute? Anthony, I think you need to stay on because, thank you.
We have 2 more agendas, Gladys.
2 more. Can I see that, what it is again? Because I do not see these little line. I don't see this at all, guys. So if somebody can read.
I'll
We
read
covered
it. I'll read it for you, Gladys.
3A and 3C, right?
Yeah,
No.
I'll read it for you. Order that the receiver, item 1, order that the receiver appear before the joint committee to discuss concerns about students potentially falling behind grade level and plans being designed to address when students are fully back in the classroom. Is there a potential, especially in the crucial early grade levels, that students might need to stay within the current grade or receive extensions, additional instructions in order to catch up to the grade level? What impacts might this have on classroom size, the need for additional teachers, and funding? That's item 1.
Thank you. I believe will be Anthony, correctly?
Yeah, so thank you for recognizing that this pandemic definitely is going to have an impact on all of our students. I feel very strongly like that this is a national issue. You know, we reviewed our Q2 data a couple of weeks ago, and unfortunately, despite our teachers' best efforts, our families and our students' best efforts, we didn't meet any one of our academic targets. You know, our students are off track, and the primary reason for that is the pandemic and the impact that it's had. We do not plan to hold any to retain any students. We don't believe that, we believe strongly that that's like a last option, right? That after we've exhausted every possible intervention or every possible support that we could have for our kids, I don't think that retaining students, this pandemic wasn't their fault. I don't think that that's the right choice or the right thing to do. I will say that, you know, parents, you know, if a parent does ask, we'll consider it, and we'll look at, you know, our retention policy and make sure we follow it. But at this point, our stance on this is that we're not going to be retaining students in light of everything that's going on with the pandemic. We do realize that, you know, our students are going to be coming through those doors, many of them with a significant learning gap. And we're lucky to have had this ESSER money and federal funding that's coming down the pipeline, because we're going to be looking at many opportunities. I don't think that this is going to be a one-year catch-up. You know, we're not going to, you know, the learning gap that we we experienced due to the pandemic is not something that we're going to recover in a month or 2 months or even a year. We're going to take a multi-year approach to ensuring that students are getting what they need. So, you know, we're looking at utilizing that ESSER funding. I just submitted a survey to the city council today. Hopefully you received it. Sam Garcia had sent it over. I sent it to school committee, and we're soliciting input from all families on where should we be investing this new money that we're getting from the federal government to address exactly the concerns that you're bringing up. So, you know, we're looking at extending our summer school to 5 weeks instead of 4. We're looking at vacation academies to provide other learning opportunities for students even during the vacation weeks. We're definitely looking into what interventions. We're going to be putting literacy labs in all of our schools in grades K to 3 and other interventions. And counseling supports, coaching support. So we're looking at everything and getting feedback on where we should be investing this money in order to address the learning loss that students have experienced over the past year. In terms of class sizes, I don't anticipate our class sizes to be impacted in any way. We did experience a drop in enrollment this year, and the majority of that drop in enrollment was in the earlier grades in pre-K and K, and that was consistent across the whole state. I don't think that's any indication of how many students we're going to have next year. I feel that our enrollment will be right where it was the year before, which is around 5,300, not the reduced enrollment of about 198 that we experienced last year.
Go.
I do have Valerie on the line, who's our Chief Academic Officer. Valerie, I don't know if you want to add anything to what I just said.
No, you did a good job. We have been continuing to build out our multi-tiered system of support in Holyoke I've been here for 3 years. We've continued to strengthen it during that time. We have increased access to interventions in literacy and in math. And we continue to have to fill gaps that we've had historically since receivership and before. So while the pandemic has certainly exacerbated that a little bit more, 100% of our students need academic supports and social emotional supports. And so we're gonna attack this first and foremost through our school day programming and making sure we have strong core instruction in content areas, and then opportunity to accelerate and close gaps by providing interventions when needed. A lot of our professional development and support, both for leaders and for teachers, is focused on that, how to utilize both core instructional data along with our intervention data on students so that teachers are going through data cycles, using that information so that they can pinpoint the instructional needs for our students. One thing I want to reiterate that Anthony mentioned is our expansion of literacy labs, which is a huge win. We know that we have a strong focus on improving the literacy outcomes of our students. We want our students to be biliterate, and that starts with making sure our early literacy is strengthened. And so every school that has grades K through 3 in it will have supports through this national program with literacy lab tutors who are highly trained in a very specific research-based model for one-on-one instruction with students who require intensive support. And we have been slowly building that partnership over the last few years. And next year, all schools will have access to that. We've also expanded Lexia Core 5, which is a literacy intervention. It's in the elementary level, but we're also expanding it and adding their Power Up option, which is at the middle school level. So we have gotten the systems in place, and now we are turning towards increasing professional development, ensuring that our school schedules allow for these programs to be used in a consistent manner so that we can accelerate our gap closing. we do have, I'm sure you're going to have some questions. So the last thing I'll say, and I know Anthony started to touch upon it, is that that's what we're doing during our school day. We are offering he mentioned summer school. We will offer acceleration academies for grades 3 through 12, both at the during April and February breaks next year. And I'm going to stop because Anthony has already given you everything else. And if you have any questions, he and I can help answer them.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to recognize two people that are waiting on here, but let me ask a question before I recognize Rebecca and Terry Murphy. My question, because it's come to me a lot as I work with many of the youth in our community, it's regarding the MCAS and those seniors who are about to graduate. What is going to be the situation on this youth that was to graduate now are concerned about their MCAS status and not receiving the support necessary to possibly pass the MCAS?
So the good news there is that the state has changed the requirement for our current sitting seniors, and they need to pass courses in ELA and in math that would be the equivalent of taking the MCAS assessment. So our 12th graders do not have to take the MCAS this year. Our juniors do, our 11th grade students do, and our 10th grade students. And we do have some tentative dates. They have pushed the dates back. So our dates for MCAS for the high school will not occur until later in May. So May 3rd through June 4th for ELA and math. And if a 10th or 11th grader still needs the science component, that will be June 1st to June 11th. So our schools are currently the high schools are currently planning what that administration would look like. But again, our 12th graders are all set. They have an alternative pathway to meeting the expectation.
Can I ask a quick question after? And I'll recognize the two people that are waiting. Do we have any data of any of these seniors who possibly dropped out thinking, now I'm gonna not? Do you have any data stating that? Have you had any dropped out, like a number that you could say?
We don't have any data with us today, but if that's something you're interested in, we can work with our high school teams.
Okay, I'd like to see what's happened in the last year. Thank you. Go ahead. I'd like to recognize Terry Murphy first, and then Rebecca, please. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, I mean, I filed the order, and actually I had spoken with Dr. Reich, assuming that the original virus and we would be back to school this past September, and I was already talking with him about some plans. Couple of things in there, and when I said smaller classroom enrollments, I wasn't thinking that students weren't going to be coming. I was thinking we were going to have more teachers so that we would have smaller student teacher ratios, because I expect more students are going to have more difficulty because of their experience. That's one of the things I would look to have that money do, especially in the early grades, because every indication is if we don't do well and say through the 4th grade, we've got problems with a child wanting to stay in school, number one, and then being able to catch up. So that when I said I was looking for potentially smaller classroom size, that's what I meant. I didn't mean we not having students come back. I meant we were going to have more teachers. So instead of having 20 kids in a class, we might have 12 kids in a class or 15 kids in a class, so that the teacher was able to spend more time trying to get that student back up. The other couple of other thoughts, and I'm glad we're looking at summer. My concern there is that I'm assuming it's voluntary, and therefore we're going to get some, but we're not going to get all, and we're going to still have a lot of kids falling behind, and therefore one of the other things that Dr. Reich and I had talked about was the potential to have, if you will, an intensive academy for the month of September in the early grades, where you're really focusing on the reading, the math, the language skills, so that they could really just catch up on that to make sure they're at the grade level. And again, my goal was not to have students staying back, but my goal was to get them caught up as quickly as possible. for two reasons. Number one, so that they aren't sitting there frustrated because they can't keep up. And number two, the kids that have kept up aren't frustrated because they're being slowed down. And so that both of those were factors. I'm glad we're looking at it and trying to create, and I would tell you, I would, if it's at all, I'd extend summer all the way through. And if they can come for a week, they come for a week. If they can come for 5 weeks or 10 weeks, whatever the case might be, we've got to get these kids caught up. And they're already challenged. They have a lot of challenges that make it more difficult. And this is our chance to step up. And I don't know how much money we're getting. I know they're talking 30-something million coming from one way, and who knows where the other money's coming from. But I would encourage us to create as many programs to make the classrooms as small as possible, to hire more teachers so that we can make sure those students get what they need. And get them caught up as quickly as possible, so that they are truly, if they're going from second to third grade, they're truly at a third grade levels, maybe by October, rather than going through the year and still trying to catch up. And I don't know if that's possible, but that's why I filed the order. I think we really have to emphasize, and we have to put, this is our future. This is the future quality of the city. And, we need to make everything, and it's not their fault, obviously. And we need to make sure we do everything we can in order to give them a better quality education. And also, the other thing is, obviously, we need to get kids into after school programs and things, but it can't all be academic. So, I'm emphasizing the academic during the school year with smaller classrooms and intensity in terms of learning skills, with the hope that they're going to now feel comfortable, and now they're going to do, whether it be sports, whether it be arts, whether it be music, whatever the case, in their after school activities. But I appreciate what you both have said. I want to encourage you to reach way out of the box and develop programs that are putting, if you will, in intensive care, because that's what they're in. They're in intensive care and they need emergency surgery. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. So when we discussed the implementation of multi-tiered and making sure we have interventions in place, it's exactly what you're talking about. We're trying to prioritize budget requests. Anthony has sent out a lot of, he's surveying the community, he's surveying his staff. And I know so far during early surveys, we've prioritized academic interventionists, which would essentially reduce group size for instructional groups. A lot of our elementary classrooms in many of our schools are relatively small. What we need is well-trained staff who can provide consistent intervention and strategic teaching in research-based systems. And so that is a priority that seems to be bubbling up. So that would get to your additional staffing. We've also prioritized instructional coaching. And that is that we are making sure that every school has access to high quality instructional coaches in ELA and in math. And we've also have ESL and special education coaches in the pipeline to support our teachers in continually developing and supporting their instructional practice. That is known as a high leverage move, the coaching for providing embedded ongoing professional development. They actually are hands-on with the students as well. And we have our coaches providing intervention to a cohort of students as well. So we know that that's a way to continually build, retain our staff, continually develop our staff and meet the student needs. So I think a couple of those things get to a lot of the comments you made, and we 100% agree that this is urgent. We'd just like to reiterate that we've had some urgency for a while. We're accelerating that because the pandemic has only strengthened that urgency. So thank you for your information
and your dedication. Thank you.
Thank you. So let me recognize Rebecca, LISI, and later after that, Michael Moriarty, please. Go ahead, Rebecca.
Thank you. My battery is going and the screen blacks out whenever I plug it in. So I'm going to try to make my comments brief so that I can see you guys. So thanks so much for being here. I love hearing about the additional supports and interventions that are going to be offered. I do have a child in the first grade, and I would love to know, when we are doing like a multi-tiered approach moving forward, are we going to still be on grade level? Because I know that when we transitioned into this year, because we lost the spring, we made up some of the, in my case, it was the kindergarten curriculum, but the previous year's curriculum in those first months. And I think that was with the sort of understanding that there'd be a learning curve moving to online learning, and we didn't know really what to expect there. But I do hope that as we move forward, we consistently work at grade level and provide the supports and interventions at grade level, as opposed to continually rolling back, because I think we never give our students a chance to sort of like meet the grade level expectations and understand what supports and interventions they might need if we're continually looking backwards at what we might have missed.
So thank you for reiterating that, Ms. LISI. So just to be very clear, we are doing interventions in addition to providing strong core instruction, which is grade level appropriate and aligned to the grade level standards. We are in a recovery scope and sequence because of the amount of learning time it takes this past year that we've been in remote world, right? So it is taking, we are absolutely implementing our grade level curriculum still. It's taking us longer to get through it because of the format that we are in. So that is part of our instructional system. First and foremost, high quality instruction in grade level standards-based curriculum. All of our curriculum is standards-based and aligned to grade level expectations. The plus more is where the intervention comes into play. An intervention is given as kind of a bad rap, right? It's always like, oh, we're playing catch up. The definition of intervention is to accelerate student learning. So when we are asking teachers to provide small group instruction tailored to the students' needs, some of that is to fill gaps. Other of it is to accelerate the students who are on grade level. But we do know, and we focus on saying intervention as gap filling, because we know that we have approximately 80% of our students, not just on MCAS, but on norm referenced assessments, benchmark assessments that we give, who require support in accessing that grade level content. So that's why it's definitely not an either or, it's a both. So thank you for allowing us to clarify that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Moriarty.
Thank you, Gladys. I wanted
Recognize
to,
you, Michael?
yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes, go ahead.
Good, okay. Yeah, I wanted to jump in on that point, but I think it was just made in response to Councilor LISI's question, because you know, I had noticed Ms. Anir had mentioned multi-tier systems of support in passing, and I wouldn't expect the city councilors to have necessarily the information or the background on that maybe the school committee members here would have. But I wanted to just reinforce the point that is a really, really big deal. That is absolutely considered the best instructional management system available. It is becoming much more the norm in school districts across the country, but it is very intensive for teachers to learn how to do it. It's not classroom management the way most of us would have experienced when we were in school. And so just as was given to you in more detail, that tier one, that core curriculum, is supposed to be the high expectation, you know, age appropriate, aligned to the curriculum frameworks information that students need to have. But in addition to that, you then have the tier two, which is the reinforcement, that when you find, and as Valerie said, it can go both ways. When you find kids are ready to move forward even more quickly, or when you find kids have gaps that are holding them back from learning that core curriculum, it can be addressed, and it can be addressed in small group settings that are tailored to the child. Tier three is more akin to kids who need much more intensive interventions, very often the kind of supports that are written into a student's educational ed plan or EIP, if they are receiving special education services. But Tier 3 is not necessarily special education. It's just got those similarities. That's really hard to teach a staff how to do. The fact that Holyoke is working at that intensively is a very, very positive development. So I just wanted to reinforce that's kind of a wonkish term that, people run around with MTSS, and to make it worse, in other places, they use the acronym RTI because they just love acronyms in education speak. But, the real practical work that's going on, that's exactly what you should want to be hearing. And I just wanted to support that and endorse that in every way possible. And just as a final thank you, particularly Councilor Murphy, but also to Rebecca, LISI, and everyone else here. Terry, your engagement with the schools, your knowledge, your focus on this as a need. This is the crisis in Holyoke, and I absolutely appreciate the effort and the focus that you've put into it so much. So just wanted to say that, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'd like to say something. So I'm just wondering, so when these children's return, I'm just looking at September, okay? I'm not looking at what is being proposed for the summer, because I think people have gone through hard times with what's happened. Parents have become teachers. They have become a little bit of everything. So they may just want a break in the summer, who may not want to be even part of anything that is being offered. And I'm hoping that that is not the case. But what is, for example, as I hear this, is going to be money available for what the impact that the COVID did to our education system. Is there going to be any additional? I know there's going to be coaches, but how are we going to determine how would I use the word? I want to say that where these children are at in their education. Some of these children were behind even in the get-go. Now they're going to be even behind even more. So is there going to be a type of assessment come September? My question. Number two, I'm thinking about this money that's coming in that, you're trying to figure out and trying to get feedbacks. I think that teachers, not necessarily to have a second teacher, but they can have even investment on some of these youth or students from our own local high schools who may be looking at early childhood, has the teacher to teach type of model that the students themselves. I know that Dr. Strike had that idea to try to begin the high school students assisting those who, about to exit more or less that year, and they already had completed mostly all their classes. They can go and help a classroom to be more on hand with these children that are going to be left, and the word I will use is left behind, and not because of our fault. This has been going on since the reason why I ran for city school board. It was the time that our children were left behind, and you're talking now 20 years ago, and we still have children that are being left behind. And I want to just make sure that, as we're investing this money, I'm quite sure we're thinking bringing more teachers, more the academic and professional world into it, when we can use that money to have even more support in this classroom, with them having at least an additional staff for the teacher. That's just my kind of feedback on that, because we're still trying to catch up with 2003 with the youth who never passed the MCAS. And we had the highest number in Holyoke of our youth who not graduated, who made us look, we never met the requirements of the state, because that made us look like they didn't graduate. So thinking about that, when you look at those numbers coming forward in the future, these are the numbers we're going to look back again in 10 years from now. Yes. Just food for thought. I mean, that's my own observation maybe, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I want to hear from you guys about what do you think.
No, I appreciate your questions and your comments, and agree with a lot of what you're saying. So To answer, first of all, I want to say that the high school students, we have had conversations on that, and we do have opportunities to have some of them work in our extended day programming. So I'm going to circle back to that. I love the idea of the work study. We have had conversations around this, but I think speaking with the high school staff around seeing if we can actually move into action with that would be great. I know our pre-K director, early childhood director, has been reaching out and working with the high school to see if we can, get students interested in the early childhood. So I'm going to double back on that. So thank you for bringing that back to the surface for me. And then with your question around the assessments, we absolutely screen our students at the beginning of the year. And so we use the Renaissance Learning STAR assessment, which gives us a good indication of where our students are in ELA and in math proficiency. We use that in pre-K through grade 10. Additionally, at the early level, it's extremely important for us to do additional screeners so that we can really pinpoint what the literacy skills are that our students need discrete education around. And so we do an additional like quick hitting that they say assessment, but it's your one-on-one, and a lot of it is verbal or oral and done very quickly with a teacher one-on-one. So it doesn't feel like a heavy loaded assessment for students. So we'll do literacy screeners as well for our early childhood students, grades we're looking at pre-K, but grades K to 3 primarily. And then we also have been training our teachers in math recovery over the last few years. And we use the math recovery screeners. It's called AVMR. And if you pressed me for what that meant right now, I might not get it, but it's basically like an advanced math recovery assessment, which gets to the early numeracy skills that students need as well. And so we've already been using that screener with students, and that those are all things that will be done immediately. We want students to acclimate to the school building first, so it might not happen the first week. We want them to get their routines and procedures and build community, but that does happen the first month of school so that we can use that information to target our instruction.
Thank you. And I also think we should continue. I know that credit recovery is used for any youth who are trying to catch up to actually graduate with their own peers. I think that should be giving always immediately that red flag is there to let these youth know you still want to graduate with your peers. Get on this like immediately, like get them registered to do so that they can do it. I think it's also been a little bit of lack of that information given to the students, because many have learned about through me to go speak to their advisors or their counselors or whoever their guidance counselor is to know about it. This should be given to everyone immediately. Like, this is here, let's get you on, let's log you on. You're behind this much. You definitely want to graduate next year with your peers. You got to work on this whole year. A self-paced additional to your classroom, because I know it's a lot to catch up for somebody who's behind in the same classroom that everybody may be ahead of the game. Just another food for thought. Thank you.
Absolutely. And some of that credit recovery is happening this April during April break. The high school is really targeting students who, and they know their numbers very quickly on who are in danger of not earning enough credit. And so they are already providing additional supports now during office hour time and other avenues during the school day. And they're additionally going to run some recovery academies over April break this year. So I know that is definitely part of the high school administration goals and very much on the forefront of their mind for all of next year as well.
Thank you. And let's not be afraid to seek out our mentoring support from our business community. These are going to be your doctors. These are going to be your teachers. They're going to be your entrepreneurs. They're going to be who they're going to be if everybody jumps in this community. Because I think one of the things I find is, and if over and over, is our system gets blamed for the outcome of their children. And we know that many of our kids are, not generalizing, but come from very social economic background. And I can say, and I use myself always as an example, my mother had only a second grade education. I couldn't go at home with a book or homework and ask her to help me because she had no knowledge of how to help me. We have many of those students in this community like that. They go home and the expectation is that they should be helped by the families. That's not the true fact. But I know that because someone took me under his wing. He helped me learn and read, and he prophesied that I will be somebody someday to say that I will be probably a city council, and that I didn't even have a knowledge about that. I'm not in, my family's not in politics or nothing, because he knew that I had the hunger to learn, but I couldn't do it because still to this day I have a heavy accent because I didn't even learn the right way of English. I kind of, you know, I suffer, and I see this over and over with our community. And the reason I say this publicly because I haven't had a chance, but if there's a committee for this particular funding that is going to have a request, I definitely want to be part of that, Anthony. You count me in, because I would like to sit and help how we can get, you know, more support from the community, because we need to make this happen. Thank you. So I have again Terry, and I have Juan Burgos. Go ahead.
I'm gonna let Juan go first because I've already, but I would
Yep.
like to talk one more time, but I'll defer to my distinguished colleague.
Go ahead, Juan.
Yes, I really.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I wanted to take it off mute completely without holding the sidebar. First of all, I want to thank you for mentioning the struggles when you were a child. I'm going to echo on that because I had the same issue. Growing up in Holyoke, my mother didn't understand English at all. She didn't know how to read. So I had the same struggles, and it was very hard. I remember being outcasted because I couldn't keep up with the other kids. And, you know, I am 50 years old. I'm about to be 51. This is going way back. But I see this still in the future. I still see this issue, this problem, where there are a lot of mothers and fathers that don't understand or can help their kids move forward. So we, children like myself, you know, back then had trouble. And it got to the point, it got so bad that I was encouraged by a principal in Peck to drop out. And so I did. And it was very hard for me. And I'm going to tell you, like, had I let some of those influences, Holyoke would have swallowed me up. The streets would have swallowed me up. I was this close. I had trouble adapting. I had trouble focusing. I thought that the problem was me, that I was the issue, that I was broken. That's how I felt all my life. That's why I started drinking and doing other things. And then I through the grace of God, I found myself again. I brought myself back to school. I worked extremely, extremely hard. And I will tell you this, if I can go back to 1988 when I was drinking with my buddies, saying that I would be a city councilor, that I would be here speaking with all you folks, I would deny that because I didn't believe in myself. And that stems from school. If there's no one that can help these kids believe in themselves, then these kids don't have a future. It is up to us to reinforce that, to bring these students to a position in life where they feel they're adequate, that they can do it. I'm here because my mother, even though she couldn't read, kept telling me that I can do it. It was so hard for me. And I would never want a kid to go through that. It's a horrible feeling. You know, it still haunts me. As a matter of fact, I'm not perfect. It still haunts me to this day. Some of those insecurities pop in my head because it stems back from my experiences at Lawrence School, Sullivan School, and Peck. These are long-term effects. We can't allow generations to keep going through the same thing. So we have to figure this out. We had to figure this out 15, 20 years ago. And I know I sound a little bit more passionate as because I'm reliving these moments. Every time I hear stories, people talking and sharing, I feel that. I still feel that to this day. I don't want another kid to go through what I went through. I don't want that. I don't want it for my granddaughter. I don't want it for anyone. No one should ever go through that. We are better together. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, thank you,
Go ahead, Terry.
So again, I think what I'm going to suggest, kind of goes along with what both of you have talked about. And I've had a lot of dealing with kids in my coaching career and all my teaching, all those other kind of things. And it does make a difference. I knew Anthony when he was just a 13 or 14-year-old, 6th or 7th grader playing basketball leagues. And this is a suggestion for summer. And I think also a suggestion potentially to enhance some of the high school students to be able to maybe get a part-time job in the summer to incorporate some of their likes so that you have an attraction for more younger kids to come and get the education, but also maybe they get, all right, here, this is a basketball player, this is an artist, this is a person that plays the violin, whatever the case might be, that you might be able to create an environment where two things happen. Number one, the young kid sees Juan Anderson Burgos and he says, boy, if he can do it, I can do it. And I want to be, and he says he'd be around. If I need his support, he's going to be around. So you get that connection to an older student who is doing well in high school and who is doing things other than just going to school and going home. They're doing other things, which now create an interest. So your summer program is not just the academics. You're attracting people by doing other things that are going to be of interest to them, and you are bringing your high school students into the educational mission, hopefully giving them pay, not a minimum wage or better, but a pay that is going to make them, it'll be their summer job, but it's also a summer job where they are having a direct impact on the students that need them. And I don't know how difficult that would be. And obviously the other question is, where are we in terms of the pandemic, in terms of spacing and all those kind of things? But if we are relatively close to being able to do that, I mean, I think we could run a lot of programs that, you know, a couple of hours of academic, an hour and a half of doing something else, and then you can go back to an academic for another hour or two, and you could have a day where it's not just you're using your brain, but you're also using your body, you're using your social skills, and which are also in dire need of improvement. So I think it relates to what both counselors have said. And I would hope that maybe we can do some of that. And it does get high school students recognizing, you know, they also have a chance to do something and make an impact and make a little bit, this can be your summer job. So I hope we can do something like that as well.
Terry, let me piggyback on what you just mentioned. Yep. We ran something similar like that, Anthony. If you look up, we did a Summer of Power 1 year. It was for ELA students only, and I ran it through Mass Higher Holyoke. I'm no longer there, just announcing, but we ran a program like that. It was called Summer of Power for ELA students. The goal was the students had to go in the morning, go to classes, and then in the afternoon, they turned to us from 1 to 4, and we would have already a placement in the community for them to do career exploration, but at the same time, they're learning something. Some of them could also help in the schools. They help in the class, you know, any summer school courses that were happening, or work with the maintenance guys. I think Whitney's off the call, but he had use of hours. And, you know, today I've seen many of them graduated and remember that moment. They remember that. Secondly, I want to let you know that in the summer, while our youth who have not passed and have to do summer school, I still, with the money that we get from the city for the summer youth program, gave them a chance to work. I said, no, go to your classroom, go do your classes in the morning, and you'll be out by almost 1 o'clock, and we have your placement. And these youth, I would find them a placement in this community with any business from 1 to 5, and they will work after that. So just so you know, and that makes an impact also on your attendance for them to participate in the summer. If you look at the Summer Power program, there was a 90% attendance, 90%. And I think, you know, you guys should have information about that. But it worked very well. Just, you know, again, I think we are trying to not put more weight on you, but I think if we want to really make an impact, this is the best impact you can do. You're helping these youth economically, financially, looking at their future by exploring what they would like and would not like. Why is it important for me to, you know, financially begin to learn what the purpose of financially means? And it gives them a hope. It gives them a step up.
Yeah, thank you guys for mentioning that. And I'll just say that we did, I think we partnered on that program. We sponsored for
Great.
students over the summer. And I would love to continue that collaboration. I know you're not over at Mass Higher Holyoke anymore, but
willing to broker it. Don't worry, they still love me there. Don't worry about it. I'll still make it happen. If you need me and I can help you kind of put it together so that you can launch it, I'm happy, because this needs to be, I think you'll see the difference. You see your 90% of attendance, why they're coming. They may be coming for the money, but that's not, your goal is to get them there. Let's do that, So thank you anyways for, listening. I think we all became emotional, but as we said, it hit many of us. So those that got hit by this situation, and I can't even talk. I didn't graduate from Holyoke. It was from Springfield. So just sharing my experience, and then I think it helps us shed a light. But I have somebody of the name Andrea Quart.
Yeah.
With a hand up. Go ahead. Can you hear me?
Hello.
Go ahead.
Thank
Hi.
you, Counselor. I really appreciated the things that the three counselors just shared. This is a great meeting. I guess I also wanted to share, I was a teacher at Holyoke High School for a year, and I think I learned a lot from that experience. Just like reflecting on my own childhood going through school, I think like if I went through high school now, I would probably be deemed to have like a learning disability, because the nature of the school, like the environment of it, is not conducive to how my brain works. And my nervous system does not respond well. It's really ineffective for me. And after even going through college with the same stuff, like now that I'm out of college for like a few years now, I feel like I have like learned so much. I feel like I'm like really coming into myself, and it's because I'm physically active. Among other things, I'm physically active and I'm doing what interests me. And I think that those are two really big things that like, I think that applies to every human, but like, it's just that connection is not there in the high school. And I can see that we are going towards that. I think like bringing more connections into the community is like so powerful. I mean, because there's so many like nuanced occupations and people and just like very interesting things that are out in the city. But when you keep kids in like a very enclosed space with like specific lighting in rigid chairs, having to hold still for an hour straight or whatever, it's just, this is an old system. This is an old approach to education. And I think that like having the school still be like a hub, but having kids like, I mean, they could connect with their teachers via their cell phones, which they already do, but like also engaging, like what Counselor Murphy was saying, with people in the neighborhood, like on a day-to-day basis. I mean, that's how you really learn how to be like a responsible human being. Like, and I'm blanking on the word, but accountability. Like if you're spending time with like an elderly woman one day and like you really connect with her, you want to know how she's doing, and versus like this cold material that has to be regurgitated, and it's not I think we need more connections with the community. So thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. I think we got your committee already, Anthony. What do you think? I'm only kidding. Just joking. Just joking. Just joking. Just joking.
I'm sorry. Did you say something to me?
No. I was just reflecting. Thank you. I said thank you for your words, but I was just saying as a joke. I think we got the committee for Anthony already. Everybody's very passionate. Thank you. Cool. Go ahead. Do we want to move on the next item, because I think
I'll make a motion that this order has been complied with.
Yes. Oh, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so what do we have? We have another one, Irene?
Yep, I'm pulling it up right now. So we're on item 2. Oops, sorry. Item 2 from GREANEY and LEAHY. Order that the City Council invite the school committee and receiver to discuss top 10 salaries.
Okay.
Top 100 salaries.
100, sorry. Top 100 salaries. Top 10.
LEAHY here?
I missed that 10, the 0.
Was Leahy and whoever, Murphy? Who called it?
GREANEY.
GREANEY. Is
Yep.
he on?
I believe Howard GREANEY is on. Yes, Councilor GREANEY.
GREANEY. You guys filed
I'm
this
on.
order? You on?
I'm on.
Okay. You want to go ahead on this question, on this
Well,
order?
we just want to get an accounting of where the salaries are, who's making the money, and the different positions that the people are in that are making the money.
Yeah.
Are you asking for a list from the?
Basically, yeah. What we did was we got a list. We did receive a list. We don't. There are like 7, 8, 9 positions that are listed under one category, and I don't have my notes right now, but we don't really know what those positions are. What we would like to do is get the position and the salary, and to know exactly what that position is, what the function of that position is. But
Like
there's
the
a group
breakdown?
of positions, and I don't have the notes, but it was a one-word term. They were listed on the top 100 salaries, and they ranged anywhere from $108,000 to $169,000 or something like that.
Cabinet. That was the word.
What was it, sir?
Yeah.
Cabinet.
That's it. Cabinet. That was the word. Yeah. Yeah.
I'd be happy
that sort of confused me. There were 7 or 8 cabinet positions, but we don't know what cabinet. I don't know what cabinet position is, or what cabinet position means, or what the function is. That's all.
Sure.
I can bring up the list if that's requested.
I'd like to.
Yeah, Jeffrey was the one that got the list for me at the time, but I believe there is 8 positions, cabinet positions, and they're listed as cabinet positions. They're not facilitators or coaches or assistant principals or whatever the function is. They're not listed.
Okay, so let me have the floor for, again, Mr. Greaney, have the chair, as the chair. I have Irene kind of raise her hand. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Irene.
I was just 2-part question for Mr. Greaney. And just wondering, like, what was the reasoning behind the order? And second, is this being asked by other departments, or like you and Mr. Leahy asking the police department, DPW, any other departments in regards to their top 100 salaries?
Generally, the police department are listed with sergeants, lieutenants. They are functional positions. I want to know what these positions are and what they do and what their salary is. That's all. It's a perfectly legitimate question, and I think that that the taxpayers, and I think, as once again a former person who worked in the schools for 35 years, we knew what the positions were, what the people were doing, and what their salaries were. It's all part of the public record. So I just want the public record to be out there. That's all.
Okay, and can I go again, Gladys? I'm just curious. No, and again, Mr. Greaney, this is not an attack. I'm just curious. Are you also going to be posting this, since it's public records? Will you post all the DPWs, anybody in the city, on the city payroll, police department is also going to be listed?
Are you questioning me, ma'am?
No, just asking a question.
If I can.
Are you questioning my motivation?
No, just simple question.
Then I'd like to find out what those positions are.
Perfect. Awesome.
Terry, go ahead.
Yeah, if I can just answer Irene's question.
Sure.
We actually have gotten all the top, also from the general city budget plus the school budget, and the top, I think top 200 for the city and the top 100 for the school. So
is that posted in the city page? I was just curious. I like to know myself.
It's public knowledge. I know that. I mean, I know I've got the list. I don't know, and I know it is being something that we're discussing in other committees. So
Yeah, no, I'm just curious, and that would be part of your city committees, right? Like all those notes?
Yep.
That's perfect. That's all I needed to know. Thank you,
Yeah,
Mr.
for
Murphy, for
clarification,
clarifying.
and Rebecca, please help me on this. I know that we're doing a study for wages increase so that it is public of knowing, right, more or less what people are making, if I can say that. Would you say that, Rebecca, or no? Is that the study shows who's getting paid what or no?
The one that we posted already is just like an inventory of what the top 100 earners in the city are making. Is that what you're asking?
Right, but I know that there was a study about every department just to find out if
the
everybody's on the same scale or what's the deal here. I'm sorry, that's what I'm trying to find out. Is that public?
Yeah, that's
Madam
public
Chair.
also, but there's very few individuals that are in the salary study, because the salary study mostly deals with non-union employees, and most of the highest earners are in unioned departments.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I
Yes,
may,
sir. Go ahead.
I would just like to know what cabinet positions are. There are 7 or 8 cabinet positions.
Okay, I got
So
Anthony
they
who's gonna
must have
answer.
a title. They must have functions. They must do something.
Okay,
They,
Anthony's
they're,
gonna be
they're,
answering
they're
you.
listed
Give me
as,
okay, we're gonna let Anthony speak next. Okay, thank you.
yeah, yes.
Our cabinet, we currently have 6 cabinet members, me being one of them. So what cabinet is just a title that we have in our munis system. They're chiefs. So I'm the chief of finance and operations for the district. They are the direct reports to the superintendent. As you all know, I'm currently doing dual roles. So my normal role is the chief of finance and operation, and I serve on the superintendent's cabinet, which is I directly report to him. He evaluates me. We have a chief of academics who you just met in Valerie Anier, and she oversees the instruction department. In my role as cabinet, I oversee the facilities department, the food service, the finance, the transportation department, the technology department, and grants. Tiffany Curtis is also a cabinet member. She's a chief of schools, and we have a chief of pupil services who oversees the special ed department, and chief of human resources. So cabinet is a term that really is just a direct report to the superintendent.
Okay, that's fantastic, Anthony. But once again, they should be listed under those, under what their duties are, what their job is. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
So that the public knows who they are, what they are, and what they do. I'm not questioning the legitimacy of them. I'm just questioning what are they and what are their functions. That's all.
Yeah, we try to we've done a lot of what Rebecca and the city's been talking about is doing this salary study and this pay bands. So the categories that were provided in this list are basically our units, our categories. So we have categories and pay bands for each category. Cabinet happens to be one of the categories that we have. It's not their position title or anything. It's just the unit and the pay band that they fall in. Principals are another category. Directors are another category. And then we have multiple like groupings where we look at pay bands, and some of them are part of collective bargaining agreements, but each cabinet member has an individual contract. I'd be happy to.
Right, exactly. I understand the principals, the vice principals. Yep. I was a vice principal at Dean Tech for several years. I understand the union. I was president of the teachers union. I was active in the administrators union. I understand all that. I just wanted to know if the cabinet, the term cabinet, as listed as an individual that's working in the school system. I just had no knowledge of what that was.
Yep.
So, if it would be nice if the duties or what, like you mentioned, the chief of whatever it is, academics is one cabinet position. And if it was listed like that, it would make much more sense to to me, certainly, and to the public. That's all I'm saying.
I can send a revised list that includes the position title. And if you'd like,
That would be fantastic.
I can provide an org chart for the district, which is listed in our budget document that we publish every year.
That would be fantastic. Just one other question while you're on, Anthony, if I could. Is our school system once again being underfunded by the state with special education to the tune that it has been in the past?
I will say that they're making steps in the right direction, but with the percentage of special ed students that we have, we're still pretty far behind. The Student Opportunity Act seeks to address that, and this upcoming year we're going to be in the first year of a 7-year implementation of that. We're very fortunate this upcoming year to get additional federal fundings to supplement the Student Opportunity Act through stimulus and ESSER monies. So given, what we just talked about, I don't want to go too extensively into it because we had a deep conversation about it, but the federal government realizes that there is a learning loss due to this pandemic, and they're arming us with the resources that we need to provide the level of supports that we hope we can provide to students. But hopefully once the Student Opportunity Act is fully implemented in 7 years, that won't be a problem.
Appreciate the information. Thank you, Anthony.
Did you see my jacket back there? I'm a Dean graduate.
Proud one.
Proud.
Well, you're talking about Peck School. When I started teaching in Holyoke, it was at Lawrence School in 1968, and we moved to Peck when it opened up. So there are some situations with Peck with the design of that building and the dingle and all that caused all kinds of problems. So those are other things we have to look at too. Anyways, it was a wonderful career, and I had nothing but respect and admiration for all the students that went through my classes through the years in the Holyoke Public Schools, at Holyoke High School and Dean Tech. We have a wonderful system and a great group of young people that I had the pleasure of teaching. So thank you.
Thank you. Let me recognize Joe McGivern, who's had his hand up. Thank you.
Thank you to the chair. And first, Anthony, I'm glad you explained cabinet, because when I read that, I thought the 6 of you were going off to Joe Biden's administration. That would be a big loss to the public schools. I'm glad you're sticking around. And I don't think Irene's question was fully answered. Irene, we are doing a complete salary study, especially on the city side of the budget, to try to look for fairness and to try to look to see where everybody is. And that was one of the reasons that we asked for these different salaries from different areas in the city. They are posted on the city website under the city council. You just go in and you'll see top salaries. There's 4 categories. One of the categories includes all elected officials. And we posted this, but it's part of our salary study that we're doing.
And that's all I wanted. Thank you, Mr. McGivern, for clarifying.
We're the ones who make the most. What do you think, Joe?
9,996.
Right, we make how much? 100,000?
6 cents go. Jenny's been looking for it.
Many of us make 100,000. Okay. So, what do we feel we comply with this order, or do we, Mr. Greaney, since you're on the call and Leahy's not on?
Yeah, okay. I'm still on.
So this order's been complied with?
Yeah.
On the motion?
The motion of the order has been complied with.
Yeah, and I'll just be waiting for that list of the cabinet positions. That's all.
Okay, then we will get the list of the cabinet positions described by the title. Thank you. So we move on. Anybody wants to second it?
Second on the motion.
Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I just want to say thank you to all who came on tonight, but let me tell you, in 10 years that I've been a city councilor, one of the most civic, informational sessions that I've ever had, where I came out really happy about our conversations. They were very transparent, respectful, and I walk away saying that we completed this night with this closing of this meeting. Thank you so much.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Night.